I never believed in Ouija boards. They were just cheap party tricks, in my opinion. Until the night, everything changed. It was a rainy Friday night, and my friends and I were stuck indoors. My friend Max, the self-proclaimed daredevil, pulled out an old Ouija board he'd found in his attic. It was dusty, the edges frayed, and it smelled faintly of mildew. "Hey man, let's talk to some ghosts," he said with a grin that was half challenge, half joke. We lit candles, turned off all the lights, and sat in a circle around the board. I remember laughing as we placed our fingers lightly on the planchette. The flickering candlelight danced across our faces, but it made the shadows in the room feel alive. Max started with the typical cheesy line. "Is anyone here with us?" We waited. Nothing. Rain hammered against the windows. "See, it's just a stupid game," I said, relieved. Then the triangle on the board moved. It wasn't dramatic, just a slow, deliberate slide toward yes. We all froze. "Alright, come on, knock it off. Who's moving it?" my friend Sarah asked, her voice tight. "Not me," Max said, his grin gone. Neither was I. Max asked another question. "What's your name?" Then the triangle on the board hesitated, then moved, and spelled out the words A-N-N-A. "Anna," Sarah whispered. "What do you want?" The air in the room changed, heavy and electric, as if someone or something was watching us. The planchette moved faster now. H-E-L-P. "Help? Help with what?" I asked, my voice cracked. The board replied, S-H-E. "She who?" Max demanded. Before we could ask another question, there was a loud bang from the hallway. We all jumped, staring at the doorway. The candles flickered wildly, and for a moment, I thought they would go out. "Probably just the wind," Max said, trying to sound casual, but his shaking hands betrayed him. We decided to end the session. "Goodbye," Sarah said firmly, but the planchette didn't move. "Goodbye," I echoed, louder this time. Still nothing. Max tried, but the planchette stayed glued to the board, as if some invisible force was holding it there. Then I heard it, a whisper, faint, right behind me. It was so quiet I couldn't make out the words, but it was there. "Did you guys hear that?" I asked, spinning around. "What?" Max said. "Shh," Sarah hissed. The whisper came again, louder this time. A woman's voice, angry, desperate. "Get out." That was it. I shot up, knocking over one of the candles. Wax spilled onto the board, but none of us cared. We scrambled to the light switch, fumbling like terrified kids. When the lights came on, the board looked different. The letters smudged, warped, as if they'd been burned. The planchette sat motionless, but I swear it looked darker somehow, like it had absorbed the shadows from the room. We didn't talk about it after that night. Max threw the board away, or at least he said he did. But sometimes, late at night, I hear that whisper again, soft, insistent. "Get out." And I wonder if Anna ever did. I was 16 when it happened. My best friend Chloe had just gotten an old Ouija board from her cousin, who claimed it didn't work anymore. We laughed about how ridiculous that sounded, but deep down, I wasn't so sure. The board was strange, not like the cheap plastic ones you'd see at toy stores. This one was wooden, with intricate carvings and a planchette that seemed heavier than it should have been. It was a boring Saturday night when Chloe convinced me to try it with her. Her parents were out of town, and the house felt eerily quiet. We set the board on the coffee table, dimmed the lights, and lit a couple of candles. I tried to keep it lighthearted, cracking jokes, but Chloe was serious. "You have to take it seriously, Emma, if we're gonna do this," she said. "That's how this works." We placed our fingers on the planchette, and she asked the first question. "Is anyone here?" Nothing happened for a few seconds, but then the planchette started moving. Slowly, deliberately. My stomach dropped. "Are you moving it?" I whispered. "No, are you?" Chloe looked pale, her eyes fixed on the board. The planchette stopped on yes. "Who are you?" Chloe asked. The planchette began to spell ALICE. "Hi, Alice," Chloe said. "How old are you?" The answer came quickly. 7. "Aw, a little kid," Chloe said, relaxing a bit. "Are you okay, Alice?" The planchette slid to no. The air in the room felt colder, and I noticed the candles flickering even though there wasn't a draft. "What happened to you?" Chloe asked, her voice softer now. The board spelled out HURT. That's when I wanted to stop. "All right, this is enough," I said, pulling my hands away, but Chloe grabbed my wrist. "Don't be rude. We can't just leave her." Something about the way she said it made my skin crawl. Chloe wasn't herself. Her voice was different, lower. "Let's just say goodbye," I said firmly. Chloe ignored me and asked, "Who hurt you, Alice?" The planchette moved erratically, faster than before, spelling nonsense. Then it stopped dead in the center of the board. I felt it before I saw it. A shadow was in the corner of the living room. It wasn't just dark, it was solid, pulsing, like it was alive. My breath caught in my throat. "Chloe, did you see that?" She didn't answer. Her eyes were glazed over, her hands glued to the planchette. The shadow moved closer, and the candles snuffed out, one by one. The only light was the faint glow from the street lamp outside, and even that seemed to dim. "Chloe!" I screamed, shaking her. She finally snapped out of it, gasping like she'd been underwater. "We have to say goodbye," I shouted. Together we forced the planchette to goodbye. The room seemed to exhale, the air clearing just slightly, but the shadow didn't disappear. I grabbed Chloe and ran for the door, leaving everything behind. The board, the candles, all of it. We never touched an Ouija board ever again. But things didn't go back to normal. Chloe's house was different after that night. Doors would creak open on their own. Lights flickered on and off constantly. And sometimes she'd wake up to the sound of a little girl crying. The worst part? About a week later, Chloe texted me a picture. The Ouija board was back on her coffee table. "I thought you threw it out," I replied. "I did," she said. That's when I noticed the planchette in the photo. It was pointing at one word. Hello. It was a typical college party, one of those casual gatherings where half the people are strangers. Someone brought an old Ouija board, and soon, a small group of us huddled around it in the living room. I wasn't thrilled about joining, but peer pressure is a powerful thing, and I didn't want to look like a buzzkill. The board looked ancient, its letters faded, the wood scratched. The planchette was chipped, as though someone had slammed it into the board a few too many times. The guy leading the session, Greg, was the kind who loved attention. "This one's legit," he said with a cocky grin. "Found it at an estate sale. The owner said it belonged to her grandmother, who used it to, talk to things." Everyone laughed nervously, but there was an edge to it. We started with the usual questions. "Is anyone here?" Greg asked, wiggling his eyebrows at the group. Nothing. "Maybe the ghosts are just shy," someone joked. Then, slowly out of nowhere, the planchette moved to yes. The laughter stopped. "Who are we speaking to?" Greg asked, clearly thrilled. The planchette spelled out ELLA. "How old are you?" The response came quickly. 10. "Why are you here, Ella?" Greg asked. The planchette slid to FRIEND. "Aw, she wants to be friends," a girl next to me said, her nervous smile betraying her unease. "Do you have a message for us?" Greg pressed. The planchette paused. Then, LEAVE. The air seemed to thicken, heavy with an invisible weight. A few people chuckled nervously, but it didn't feel funny anymore. "I think we should stop," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "No way," Greg shot back. "We're just getting started." He smirked and asked, "Why should we leave?" The response was immediate, fast, as if whoever or whatever was answering the growing impatient. DANGER. The room fell silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. "Danger from what?" Greg asked, his bravado faltering just a little. The planchette didn't move for a moment, and I thought maybe it was over. Then it slid, trembling this time, to spell HER. "Her?" Greg said, frowning. "Who's her?" Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the kitchen, like someone had thrown a plate against the wall. Everyone jumped, and one of the girls screamed. "That's it, I'm done," I said, pulling my hands away, but Greg wouldn't stop. "Ella, who is her?" he asked once again, his voice shaking now. The board spelled out one final word. MINE. And then the candles went out. The darkness was suffocating, and for a moment, no one moved. Then, as if on cue, every door in the house slammed shut, one after the other, echoing like gunshots. We scrambled to turn off the lights, but the switches didn't work. My phone's flashlight flickered weakly as I looked around. Greg was staring at the board, frozen. I can't move my hands," he said, his voice barely audible. "What?" "The planchette. It's stuck." I reached for him, but before I could, the planchette dragged itself across the board with his fingers still on it. Scraping the wood loudly, it stopped at the word goodbye. The lights flickered back on, and Greg yanked his hands away, his face pale and slick with sweat. None of us said a word as we left the house that night, but I'll never forget the look on Greg's face. He wouldn't talk about what he saw or felt when the planchette moved, but something changed in him. A week later, he dropped out of school. When I tried to call him, his phone was disconnected. I ran into one of his old roommates months later. I asked if he'd heard from him, and his face went pale. "No," he said, his voice trembling. "But the board? It's still in his room. Every time I try to throw it out, it's back in the same spot the next day. And the planchette? It's always on the word goodbye."